Okay, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. First thing, we have assignment for request for council action. We have, for the Finance Committee, 17-221 budget amendment, 17-222 approved medical, mutual, dental, and life insurance benefits, 17-223 renew master service agreement with Port Authority for fiber services, 17-224 amend 13301 association memberships for the law director, 17-225 water rates, 17-227 agreement with health department testing stormwater runoff, 17-228 bids for East Smith Road reconstruction, 17-229 bids for Champion Creek multipurpose path and streetscape, 17-230 city contribution of Office of Older Adults, 17-231 fund advances, 17-232 rollover advances, and for the Health, Safety, and Sanitation Department, 17-226 amending salaries and benefits code for the Police Department, remove a sergeant and add a lieutenant. Item number 2, we talked about this before, 17-200 credit card fees. So who wants to, Keith, do you want to talk about that?
I'll open up on that. We had a few things to discuss. You had mentioned at the last meeting wanting to be consistent across the city. The rec center wanted to talk to me and wanted to talk about they don't necessarily think that's advantageous for them. In addition to that, it may not be feasible anyway. We gave the contracts to Greg to look over. The way it works when you take credit cards, you sign a contract with Visa, whoever, for these cards, but it's a take it or leave it contract. I mean, it's not a negotiated thing. They're major, and they have limitations on what you can do as far as passing through the fees. There's an exemption for municipalities, as we understand it. It's limited as to what it's for utilities and so on. I don't think we can pass through the fees on other things. Greg's looking at that, so we'll have a final answer as to whether or not we can. But there's significant question as to whether or not we can. Even if we can, the rec center, Mike and Christie wanted to talk to me and wanted to express at this meeting, it's a bit of an issue for them, and so that all of you understand it, understand that bad checks aren't really a problem for Nancy or I, because if you write a bad check on your traffic ticket, they issue a bench warrant. If you write a bad check to me on a water bill, I shut your water off. If you write a bad check to the rec center for punch cards for admission, you're already out the door with the punch cards. It's a lot harder for them to collect on bad checks than it is for Nancy or I, because Nancy and I both have pretty significant leverage in the nature of what we do. We have the same thing, I mean, even with building permits. If you write a bad check on a building permit, we cancel the permit and the inspectors come out and issue a cease and desist. You can't really get far with a building permit.
But what does that have to do with credit cards, though?
Well, the reason I bring that up is because the credit card fees are a cost that we have to pay that we don't really need to pay because we don't have a problem with bad checks. For the rec center, they feel differently because for them, the credit card fee is probably offsets against the bad check issue, where bad checks aren't really an issue for us. But aside from that, I don't think that we can, and again, Greg's looking at it, I don't think we can pass the fees through on non-utility stuff. We're looking into that. On some of them, we can, we're not sure what the legal understanding here is, but like Nancy right now is charging, and I remember I told you last meeting, she's charging it for people who pay online, but not for people who pay in person. That might not be just a matter of which contracts you're in. We might not be able to do it in person, but we can online. Now, Darren had suggested that one solution we talked about is we could put a kiosk at the utility window and say, okay, if you want to pay online, here's a computer, you can pay with a credit card online, and the fee will be passed through, and we don't take credit cards at the window where we absorb the fee. But all that's what you want to do, and I think we're going to probably have to determine legally what we can do before we really get too deep into that discussion, because right now we're not prepared to answer that question. Greg?
Well, I guess the other question that came up that I talked to the mayor a little bit about is with the SSI, with now they want to charge a transaction fee in addition to the credit card fees that the member would pay if you use a credit card, which is quite hefty, I guess, what Darren was saying. And I guess, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, if you get charged a credit card fee, then another transaction fee because of our software. So I asked the question, maybe it's time if we look at other software programs rather than going back with SSI, because it's kind of old, maybe there's other benefits out there for a different software company. And I don't know if we ever looked into that either.
I talked to Darren about that a bit, and our understanding is that this fee's gonna hit us anywhere, because the change that's coming is that we don't have the security that the credit card companies are requiring.
But how can
So-
other software companies don't have the security? I guess that's another question.
Well, but they're gonna charge for it too. The point is not that they don't have it, they are, and I mean, SSI is gonna have it too, but in order to upgrade for it.
Well, that was the other question too, with SSI, I mean, we had a long time, I don't know if there's better companies out there now, why would we go back with the same company if there's a better one? I mean, SSI's been there a long time, but are they keeping up with everybody? How do we, I mean, who's looking into all that?
We get new software from SSI, and I mean, when you buy the software, you can buy it from a number of different vendors. I know I get calls periodically from companies in California that say, hey, we can provide you this software, that type of thing. One of my concerns always with that is SSI has they're based in Ohio, they have a number of Ohio customers. That's something that would be a major plus for me in looking at software vendors, because there are a lot of things that come along where Ohio law changes and SSI takes care of it. If we have an out-of-state vendor where we're the lone Ohio customer, then anytime there's a change, we're gonna be paying for them to upgrade the software to meet whatever law is changed.
Do we know what other, I mean, I guess there's, how many, 800, how many other jurisdictions, 88, I guess, well, more than that.
Oh, there's a lot more than that as far as cities.
500.
Brunswick's on SSI, Wadsworth was and switched. And last I talked to them, I don't think they were.
Well, we could do a check, I mean, Kathy, you could probably send out this email to the municipal league and say, what do people use, so we can get a feel for what the major provider is. Is it SSI through Ohio, or is there another provider that's even bigger than SSI in Ohio? I mean, I guess I would, because I guess the question is, if we're to the point where we have to do an upgrade, why don't we look at what's better? Is there anything better? And is there anything more cost-effective for the city? That's what I would do. I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think upgrading the financial software over a credit card fee issue is a bit of a tail wagging the dog. And I'm not objecting to the idea of looking into the software, but I really wasn't prepared for that discussion.
No, I know, I just bring it up because we just talked about it today, and it's like, you know, if we have to pay an upgrade, and the upgrade's costly, why don't we look into, see what's else out there, if it's something that's more, better, you know, is better for the city, or maybe, I mean, I don't know what's good for the city. I guess the only question I look at, what is everybody else in Ohio using, and if more people are using things, more people use SSI, well, SSI is the way to go. If more people use this other program, well, maybe the other program's the way to go, because if everybody's using it, why would it be bad?
It's been a while, but we have priced out changes on it before. I don't know what the current status of our contract with SSI is off the top of my head. When we renew with them, we get a contract for X number of years.
Right.
On the upgrades, in the time that I have been here, we have generally been on the late end of the curve on the upgrades, because typically when they come out with a new software, they want a pile of money for it.
Mhm.
And then after it's been out for a couple of years, they get sick of supporting the old stuff and they end up giving it to you. I know we've gotten a free upgrade at least once since I've been here, basically just because they didn't want to support our old software anymore, so they were willing to upgrade us for free. It wasn't completely free, because in order to get that, we had to sign a 3 or 5 year maintenance agreement, but we got upgraded cheap. Generally with software, the way it works, if you want to get upgraded cheap, there's 2 ways to do it. One is to be the guinea pig and go first, and then sometimes they'll even do it for free, but again, you're the guinea pig. All the bugs that are in it, you're the one that gets to find them. The other way you can get it cheap is to be last, to where they don't want to be supporting their old stuff anymore, so they give you a deal on their new stuff so that they can get rid of the
Well, I guess
maintenance on the
the
old.
other question is, didn't we upgrade for a dashboard? But we're gonna get a dashboard to read it too, but what about the dashboard that we have through SSI? How's that working?
I'd say pretty.
I think the department heads can go on and see general information on that. More specifically, they probably need to call us and we can get any information they need for specifics, but at least that gives them a snapshot of what's going on in their department.
Because I think Rita, when they have a dashboard, they talked about, what is that dashboard gonna show us?
The dashboard for Rita is that's basically just for me.
Oh, to see what who's paying, who's not, or how many people
Right,
pay.
the dashboard is specific to the tax information from Rita. The finance software in general, a dashboard, and the way it's set up, I mean, you can set up so that different people have different levels of access, so some people can check only their department, or can check whatever, and, you know, you set it up however you want.
Well, what do you guys think about all that information? What do you think we should do with credit
I have a
cards?
suggestion. First of all, finding out what other municipalities in our area, you know, in the state are using. And if it's predominantly SSI, why would we change?
Right, I agree.
I kind of like Keith's analogy. It's the tail wagging the dog by changing for just one type of fee. However, sometimes going out there and shaking the bushes,
Oh, yeah.
we can cause people to say, hey, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on? Why are we doing this? We might get lower fees, we might get a better software product out of this. I do agree with you. However, to change because we do have this fee and because of all the other fees, I think we seriously do have to look at that, because the one calculation with the numbers that was provided at the last meeting, we're paying out $24,000 just through your office in credit card fees. And that's money that's coming out of the general fund. That's money that we can use for other things, for city purposes, other than feather in the pockets of a credit card company. So in that regard, I think it is worth waking some people up out there.
As far as the finance software in general, I'm not averse at all to pricing that out, to looking at what other cities are with. I've done that a couple times since I've been here. SSI is a pretty major provider in the state of Ohio. I don't know that they're the biggest, but I know they're one of the top few. But I don't think this is the time for that, because I don't know where we are in that contract. I'll have to check on that when we get to the end of that. We've looked at that generally when we're looking at an upgrade with SSI, because at that time's the time when you make the decision, okay, are we gonna upgrade to SSI's newest generation, or are we gonna switch to somebody else's software, price it out and see where you go. We have to at least be at the end of the contract with SSI, because we signed a contract for the maintenance.
Well, I guess that's good, we should know that, but I guess the question too is if we're gonna do an upgrade, let's know that too before we put some money on an upgrade. Because if it's like a year, why would we spend the money on the upgrade?
There's like the online piece is like one piece. It's like separate from upgrading the whole software. It's like our current online is through eGov to web, and that's what they're gonna stop really enhancing. And that's why they're pushing for this invoice cloud.
Well, I guess let's see how long we have. I mean, like I said, if it's 5 years, that's one thing. If
Yeah.
it's 1 or 2 years, maybe that's another thing. I mean, I guess if you're close, you have more leverage, I guess, with the provider, because you could say, okay, we're gonna go ahead and look over here, and all of a sudden they'll say, oh, we'll get that to you for free. So,
It's not, I don't know about free, but it's definitely, I mean, if you go to SSI and say, hey, we're looking at Sanderson for their software, you might get a better price.
but I guess it still brings us to an issue with all this credit card stuff that we talked about. We talked about passing it through, and then we have limited abilities to pass it through. Some of it's exempted, as we learn now, for utilities, that there's no fee charged for that. But that's just for SSI.
No, that's the credit card
Oh,
companies
that's for
in general.
both.
If you're a vendor, if you run a business and you want to take credit cards, generally, you sign a contract with the credit card companies, and part of that contract is that you will not charge extra to people who are paying by credit card. That's what they generally require. There are some exceptions specific to us, but I think it's pretty limited, because they don't want credit card customers to have to pay more money.
Right.
So the
In
business
all
is,
honesty, after looking at this as the attorney for the city, it's so convoluted, my conclusion was that you can't pass on the fee to the company and still preserve what the rec center is doing. I mean, it's a nice idea, it saves us money, but you sign these contracts with the credit card company, you're limited on what you can do. We have different credit card companies, different contracts, it's all over the place, and there is not gonna be the capability of having one rule. And it's,
And the one
the
piece of.
city provides a service to people to use this with credit card, and the downside of providing that service is that you pay this fee.
and don't you, I mean, Greg, you may know the answer to this, or Keith, wouldn't most businesses, when they sign up to accept credit cards, and they know there's gonna be that fee that they can't pass along as a fee, if they're selling a product, wouldn't they incorporate that into their products?
Exactly, and they pay that fee themselves to provide the service.
Right.
As a benefit to their customer to draw in more customers. And frankly, that's what our rec center is doing right now.
And that fee for the rec center we talked about, was it about 30,000 a year? Is that what?
It's been cut down, it's gonna be about 20,000 now.
20,000 a year we pay just for people who use credit cards.
Right.
And if you talk about how we switched programs, we went from active. The reason we changed from active to this new sportsman program to do all the memberships and everything is because active was raising their fees, plus they were gonna charge us a per transaction fee that was gonna cost us another additional $35,000 a year. So we changed programs, saved $6,000 in the maintenance fees alone, got it down to $4,000 instead of $10,000, and we don't pay it per transaction fee at all. We're dealing with some issues, but it's, that's what we're gonna do to save that money, we're gonna deal with those issues.
And I guess what we're talking about here, if we do the upgrade, we gotta pay that transaction fee, but if we don't do the upgrade, do we have to pay the transaction fee, or are they making us do the upgrade?
I think they're making us do the upgrade. I don't think we have much of a choice on that, right?
That's what it sounds like.
And I think that's Darren has worked with that more, but it's more of a security issue that they have to have higher levels of security. Credit card companies are demanding.
So my take on this is that this essentially boils down to a sort of deal with the devil, where you're gonna open up this service, this is the price you pay, and you take it on the chin, but as a policy, there's a lot of benefit to providing the public this ability to make their payments. So I think that's the policy decision you have to make. We could do away with credit cards. We used to function just fine without credit cards, and you don't have a problem.
Well, we used to function well without computers too.
That
but
would be crazy.
I think we got to move forward here.
Put an ATM.
Well, I guess we still have to get more information to make a decision, right? I mean, we want to look a little bit at what our contract is with SSI, how long that is, and
I wrote down to get you that.
and then just make a determination then with the credit cards. I mean, if we have to go with SSI, we know we're going to get another fee on top of it that we're going to have to absorb.
Is there some way we could, instead of charging credit card fee, charge like, say, a documentation fee or something like that, that the
The credit card
processing
companies
fee or
have,
something?
the credit card companies have kind of thought of that, is my understanding. I mean, we could have Craig look at that contract, see what we can get away with. I think we can do it on the utilities
Well, in that one piece of paper I saw, we specifically can
Right.
charge for that, yes.
We can do it on utilities, at least online. I'm not positive about at the window, but I mean, like I said, the solution to that is we can just put a kiosk at the window and say, okay, you can pay online with a credit card, if that's the direction we want to go. I don't think, and I'm not sure, but I don't think we can apply that fee to, if somebody comes to the window and says, I want to use my credit card to pay for a pavilion rental, and I'm not sure about building permits. I don't know how the contract works with that.
But again, in the future, couldn't we, I mean, it sounds like through this investigative process that every department head's going through that deals with credit cards, that in the future, when we sit down and we're looking at rental fees or utility fees, that we're providing a product, maybe in the future, instead of asking to pay fees, that we can incorporate, because it is a cost. It's all the taxpayers, not only that are using the credit cards, but are ones that don't use the credit cards are paying.
And that's the complication to it, because what Paul was asking about, I don't think we can do it where only the people that are using credit cards are paying it on a big
No,
value.
that's what I'm suggesting,
So-
maybe in the
so
future we
that's-
could figure out.
Well, the question is, if you raise the, like, say, charge $10 to pay by credit card, you get a fee. If you say, well, we'll build a fee and we'll charge $11, well, now you gotta pay the extra $1, you get a fee on that too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like no matter what you do, you're always gonna get feed. That's always gonna increase, so.
Feed.
I wonder if you could do a reverse though, where you say if you pay by cash, you get a discount. So you build it in, but then if somebody's still paying by cash or check,
What they do at the gas station.
yeah. Maybe you could do it reverse.
That might be a possibility, or, since we know we can pass the fee on with utilities, the question is it important as a constituent matter that we accept credit cards for building permits, or do we just say, okay, here's the kiosk for utilities, the fees pass through, and if you're paying for a building permit, it's cash or check?
Well, the funny thing is, and I talked to the
Because-
mayor earlier, is that probably in 20 years, there'll be no credit cards anymore. It's all gonna be whatever, Bitcoin, whatever that stuff is.
There's still gonna be a fee for it.
'Cause-
Somebody's gonna charge.
I mean, but I will give you another example that we had, that I'm not sure if I was okay on the contract, but we held this one up. We had a guy who came in, was a developer, wanted to buy, it was like $75,000 worth of water tap-ins, and he wanted to pay by credit card. I said no. I don't know if we legally could say no or not, but he didn't sue us, so, I mean, and fundamentally, the reason is it's a 3% fee on $75,000. Maybe we don't want to take credit cards on building permits anyway, because if somebody's coming in and buying a water tap in, and they want to buy $20,000 worth of them, I mean, the 3% fee on a water bill is one thing, on a $20,000 worth of water tap-ins, do we want to take credit cards? You understand, I mean,
Well, I understand. My bigger concern is people paying their ongoing water bill monthly by credit card and then charging them a fee on top of it. That just doesn't seem fair. That's where I have a problem. I mean, but getting a building permit's another different issue, but people who are trying to live and they're using this to live, and, you know, that's.
That's why maybe with regard to the water fees, if we could maybe, like, I think it's Armstrong offers a discount if they can go right into your checking account and take the money out every month. Maybe if we could do something like that, tying onto what Jim said, okay? And how should I say, discount our way to the behavior we want.
I think that the system is set up such that we can do that. If we can, we would certainly support in the finance department giving a discount for ACH, because as we talked about before, that's our cheapest collection method. So if we could tell people, okay, if you go with ACH, we'll give you and I think with Armstrong it's $1, I'm not sure, because I know I do it with Armstrong, but okay, it's $1, I mean, we could do the same thing and say we'll give you $1 off. Now, water rates are a couple items down, so we're gonna have to talk about that if everybody switches over to it. But, you know, I think it's worth looking into, and I'll see if the system's set up such that we could do an ACH discount.
Okay.
The only other thing to keep in mind is, and I know we've got to go through it logically, is when's the SSI contract? Are there other vendors, all those things? The only problem with another vendor, and John and I talked about this earlier, is that if we decide this vendor is better than SSI, be it price, be it options, whatever, then generally you're gonna have to pay for the SSI for at least a year or two, so that you have the historical data, that you can't just unplug it and be done.
Right.
Because sometimes you need to go back and look at that, much like we did with the police softwares. So now you're paying for two systems, at least for a short period of time, to get to where you want to get to.
Don't we have that information backed up now with regard to disaster recovery and the like?
We
Sure,
have
but
backed up, but the software is what runs the program. So if you unplug the software, then you can't see the data.
But it's, I'll talk to Darren and see what kind of database it's stored in. Maybe we can get a conversion package and convert the data
Right.
to something, to a spreadsheet or something, so we don't have to do that.
It's possible. The other thing is sometimes a new vendor can write a conversion from old to
Right.
new. But again, then sometimes that adds a cost to
But
get
it
you
may be
that.
cheaper than
Well,
keeping
Understood.
the extra software for
Yeah,
another year or two.
just something else to keep in mind.
I definitely want to tack on what the mayor says. You don't want to switch software lightly, because switching software is going to be a major endeavor. Not only in terms of cost that we're going to pay the new software company, but there's also going to be in terms of hours in my department, because all of the people that work in my department are using SSI software to do their job every day. And if you put a new software in front of them to do their job, they're gonna have to learn that new software. There's gonna be a certain amount of, there's gonna be growing pains involved in that, there's gonna be, oh geez, how do we do this that we used to, I mean, there's gonna be things you didn't think of. There's gonna be a significant amount of cost, not just with the software vendor, but in terms of hours and overtime in my department, getting used to that. And so, I mean, that's definitely not, we don't wanna switch software every 2 weeks, or because it's
And-
$2
and-
cheaper. You know,
That's what I do
it's
for a
gotta be a
living.
lot better.
I understand that. So, and with the right company, you can have them build that training into the price of the product. Okay, and work it out so that they want to sell the product, you can get the training for a lot lower unit cost than you would if you would send them out to individual schools or bring somebody in and stuff like
I
that.
get it.
Depending on the vendor, of course. Okay.
All right, so we have more to learn. I mean, I guess it's been an eye opener, just this process, learning what the credit card fees are and things that we kind of took for granted, I guess, a little bit, so. Anybody have any other questions they want to have looked at or have now, or?
You touched on it, that we may not be able to do, after I read everything, I don't think we'd be able to do what we thought we could do with the rec center. We may have to separate into three separate things, court, city, and rec center.
And I'd like to see what we get from the Ohio Municipal League and what other communities are doing. I mean, I
They gotta
don't want to
have
sit
the
here and
same issues,
reinvent the
right?
wheel. I mean, credit card purchase has been going on for quite some time. And hopefully there's something out there that makes sense, and if not, Does make sense.
I mean, fees are not gonna go away, just, I mean, wasn't that many years ago, you could use an ATM with your bank and
Oh,
your
yeah.
money
Right.
and no fees.
Right.
That's not the case
A lot
now.
of unanswered questions.
You know, there's just, fees are part of life, I guess.
Right, anything else? Okay, all right, thanks for the information. 17207, we have budget amendments. The first one we have is 2017-54 tree replacement Huntington lot.
I'll take this, John, because Jansen wasn't able to make finance, he'll be here for council. So what we had was a total of 6 trees over in the, I just lost the name of it now.
Behind Town Square Common.
Behind Town Square Commons.
Mhm.
3 of them by the steps, 4 of them by the steps, 2 of them not in the right of way, but in the lot, between the sidewalk and the lot. The city is responsible for maintenance of the lots, so we approached First Merit Huntington and asked if they would be willing to do a collaborative effort with the city, that if we used our in-kind to remove the 2 worst trees near the sidewalk, removed them, ground the stumps, and took out 1 more bad tree by the steps and trimmed the other 3. The reason the trees were doing bad, those 4, was because they were in too close proximity to each other, according to Jansen. Would Huntington then pay for the replacement of the 2 trees, not the one by the steps, but the 2 trees by the sidewalk and the install? They agreed to do that in that exchange of services, and that's what the $779 is for, to buy 2 new trees and contract for the planting of them.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2017-46 unclaimed funds, CCA.
We got these funds from CCA. They're funds that CCA has been holding on our behalf. They give it to us at the end of every year. We appropriate the funds because what we do is we create a purchase order so that if we have to pay these out, we have the purchase order available to do that, but we need an appropriation to cover that purchase order.
Do we ever, unclaimed funds, cross-reference the names that we currently have and notify people, or we don't do that?
Well, I think CCA does that before they give them to us, because if they're still a taxpayer, then they would have it, and they would
Right.
just roll it on. Once we get it, we just hold it for the required amount of time.
What is that required amount of time?
7 years?
5?
5 or 7 years. We hold the purchase order for,
And then where's the money go to the state, or where's it, the cheats to where?
this comes back to us at the end of the years.
Back to finance department or general fund?
Yeah, we have a big part. It goes to
Wrong
general-
answer.
It goes to general fund. Once we get to the end of the required time, we can close the purchase order and push it back to general fund.
Okay,
You need to cover credit card fees.
there you go.
Yep.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. 2017-047, increase appropriations for drug enforcement.
The Drug Enforcement Trust Fund, we typically budget money into it because it's not really planned expenditures, but they're allowed to purchase things out of it, and we need this appropriation for it.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2017-48, grant-funded projects.
This is a number of different appropriation adjustments, all relating to grant projects that we have to have appropriations to cover.
Is this increasing, is this going back to the general fund or taking from the general fund? Is it reappropriating them, or?
These are appropriations in the grant funds. The
Oh, in
money
the
from the
grant
general fund
funds.
is coming later.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2017-049, bid performance bond refunds.
Pretty much just what it says. We have to pay these back when projects are done or when they don't get the bid.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Pool engine house tempo demo.
Now, we had a number of questions about these. The Temple, the issue with the Temple was that it was a 2016 purchase order. There was a reduction to one and an increase to the other, and we didn't ask for an appropriation at that time because when that came through, they were thinking that the reduction to the one purchase order would provide the money for a smaller increase to the other purchase order. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way if the purchase order is from a prior year, because when you close out a prior year purchase order, it doesn't go back to appropriation, it goes to unappropriated funds, so we need to reappropriate it. The pool, that's the chair.
That was the pool key.
That was the pool.
Description.
That was the one for the pool. And then the temple, you can explain, I'll talk to you about it.
We came back to council when we had a change order for asbestos that we found, and council authorized us passing an ordinance. And we paid it, but apparently the allocation never made it to the incumbents.
And then the engine house?
That's just working on this project we've been ongoing.
Everybody understand that? There's a lot of things going on there. So we're just moving money around to cover the costs that were, need to be appropriated and never allocated, I guess. That's what
So
I
it's been appropriated, just not allocated, correct?
Or is it
No,
not?
it was not appropriate.
It was not appropriate.
It was passed by ordinance, but then we didn't get a transfer to actually appropriate the money, which is a two-step thing.
To approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2017-051, grant funded projects.
These are more grants that we have, you've authorized the grants, the acceptance, doing the work, but we don't have enough appropriation to cover the work we've done this year.
So this is gonna come out of the general fund and make it another $500,000 out of the general fund.
Ultimately, down in item number 12 and 13, we're doing advances for it, but the money won't come from the general fund in the long run because
Right.
the grant projects will get it back.
But it takes the cash out of it, so we have less cash there.
Right.
This is another $500,000, so up to $5 million, or close to it.
Close to it, yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2017-052 bicentennial mechanics fund.
If you're wondering why we have so many of these, it's because this is the last meeting of the year, and we have to have the appropriation square for December 31st. So these are another group of funds where we have changes necessary. I mean, I could go through them, but kind of have the list there, bicentennial,
Yep.
cemetery, et cetera.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Street Department, 7985.
This is the same thing, just turned into his own,
Ooh,
but I worked with him on it, so.
okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? And 2017-053 advances out.
This is to cover the things that you have below in items number 12 and 13. These are appropriations to cover these advances. We've had to do this for a few years now. The auditors won't accept advances that go on forever and ever and ever, so we have to roll them every year. So this is our annual rolling of outstanding advances.
So of all the funds, we have $10,600,000 in cash we're advancing that's gonna be repaid through the grants.
Not exactly. That 10 million is a double counted number because we have to advance it from, we're paying it from one and then paying it back from general, so it's half that.
Half that. So that's the cash we advanced that we're hoping to get back, so the money we can use then for other things.
Right.
But we're getting grants to do it, so that's a good thing.
Right.
And we have the cash on hand to cover all this.
We do.
Is that called cash control?
Oh, now I lost John's vote.
I understand.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. All right. 1722, medical, mutual, dental, and health insurance benefits.
We submitted this, they weren't able to get it completed when we did the healthcare last time, the last council meeting. So we've asked this to go to finance and council. The dental is pretty much flat, and the life insurance was a slight decrease. So MMO was a decrease. When I say slight, our premiums for UHC was $10,300 for the whole city, and MMO was $9,400, or savings of almost $900. So it's not real significant, but it's better that it's going down versus up. So overall, we've done well with the three insurances, and this is directly through MMO versus going to UHC and then to another vendor.
Move to approve with emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause.
So does anybody have any problem with going right from here to council then? It's gotta happen by the end of the year.
No, you're gonna have to come back for another meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, credit card.
All right, all in favor of commercial clause?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 17-223, master services agreement with Medina Port Authority. Who's this one? Darren's not here, is he? No. Mayor, this is you.
Oh, Darren's not here. Okay, so this is the fiber agreement. Sorry, I've got notes here somewhere for it. So, it used to be $853 a month with the previous contracts, and it was a 5-year contract. Darren did some magic and talked them into a 3-year contract versus 5, and dropped from $853 to $500 a month. So it's substantially lower. Mr. Huber has already reviewed the contract and approved it. Our plan is, because they've switched to a new internet provider that Board of Control just approved, that the city will, instead of using Armstrong as the primary and Medina Fiber as the secondary, we're going to reverse that because the fiber and the internet provider seem to provide much better service for us and cheaper. So then the Armstrong will become the backup.
And it goes from council, finance to council. Again, if we don't do it, then they just don't have internet next year for a little while. Is that okay? No? Okay.
Mr. Rose has a question.
Yeah, in the term and renewal options, it says here the term of the agreement is 5 years. And I believe I heard you say it's 3 years?
Right.
It's
Yep.
page 5 of
Yeah, I see
the
it.
agreement.
Is this an old one? Maybe we just approve it with 3? Did he say it was 3 for sure?
I'm just reading Darren's notes. It says
He had
3.
told me 3, but
Right,
he probably didn't.
And in his request, it says 3 as well.
right.
Maybe this is just a sample contract?
Or we'll have to come back again.
No? We'll
Oh,
go- We can approve it with 3.
We can adjust it. We can adjust this.
We can approve it with 3.
Right.
That's the deal.
Right.
I'll see if I can get an answer here. If you want to
Okay.
delay that 1 second.
All right, let's delay that one. Number 5 delayed. 17-224, amending 313301, association memberships for the law director. Mr. Huber, this sounds like you.
This organization, the Northeast Ohio Law Directors Association, organizes meetings for law directors, and it's a good resource for me. It's been helpful to be able to compare notes with other law directors in other municipalities in Northeast Ohio, especially with respect to state issues that are affecting all the municipalities. A good example is the cell tower legislation that the state of Ohio has foisted upon municipalities, and trying to organize what we do about what's occurred. It's a help organization. It costs $75 a year to join, and in order to do that, we have to amend the organization that we have that would allow me to do that, allow me to join the association.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're a new member. Okay. 17-225, water rates. Keith?
Thank you. This, I sent you this request. Nino and I and Andy Bendel from the Water Department attended the meeting. I sent a rather extensive report on that meeting. I didn't get any questions, so I guess I covered it. The main thing we're dealing with, at least here, is the rate increase. They notified us of a 5-cent increase to $1.79 from $1.74 effective July 1st. What I've requested here, I gave you the information from the county sanitary engineer. We talked to them at that meeting. They have adopted at the county a policy where the rates, the rate increases that we get from Avon are automatically passed through. And if you would like to do that, we can handle that, and we probably won't be back here to talk about rate increases for quite some time. If you don't want to do that, It's a 2.87%, 2.87% increase effective July 1st, so I'd ask for 3% to match that. Cover us, I don't know I gave you a lot of
What do we do
information,
now?
what questions do you have?
What do we do now? We do 3% a year now, don't we?
That's how we set it up.
Well, I included the ordinance from your last increase. In 9814, you passed an ordinance that included 6 increases. The last of those increases is January 1st of 2018, is at 3%.
Mhm.
That is matched to the 3% increase that we paid July of 17. Actually, it was a little higher, it was 357. So we're caught up to there. Now we're
Going forward,
going
yeah.
forward.
Mhm.
I mean,
So
if
what's your
you
two
want
options
to
again, to 3% or?
He wants to adopt a resolution that says whenever they increase it, we increase ours,
Oh, whatever the rate is.
whatever it is. What do people think about that?
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it makes sense.
I'd rather look at it rather than have it
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I want to see what the counts at. I think the 3% we've been doing annually has worked.
What if it comes in at 1% next year? It's not want to, but I mean, what if it did?
And that's
Well,
where
I
it
can-
jumps.
Yeah, then we look at it and see and back it off if needed, or maybe we have upcoming projects that we still need that additional
Yeah, that's true.
revenue.
One benefit
convince me.
One benefit of doing it as it comes in is if we discuss it, then it's, you know, it's easier to pass along to the public because they'll know that the rate increased.
Mhm.
But beyond that, you know, I don't see why we don't just have it automatically follow whatever the rate increase is, will be the rate increase.
Right. Or your children's guy.
Well, I agree, I think it's just easier to pass it along. I mean, if we have stuff that we need to raise money for capital improvements, then we can change it.
Mhm.
But if we just pass it through, I mean, we don't have to worry about it every year.
So right now, we got 2 passes, 2 against passes, or three passes.
I'm good either way. I mean, I understand what Mark's saying. I would go with the pass-through right now, and if we need additional capital improvements.
Well, we have a 3% happening January 1st.
Right.
I'm
In
talking
this
about
situation,
beyond that,
yeah.
beyond that.
But this 3%'s July 1 of 18, right?
Right.
Mhm. But we have a 3% that we're gonna implement January
January
1st.
1st.
So we're gonna be ahead of the curve a little bit, right? Or are we?
No,
No,
we're
it's
behind,
based on-
because
We're in arrears, okay.
that's catching us up for the increase they just did.
I'm okay with passing it out, passing it through every time.
Without
Automatic.
discussing it? Okay.
And then plus doing
Well, I
additional rate increase like we've done, or are we going to stop that?
So it looks like it's, wait, I'm trying to get the, it's 4 to 3 right now, yeah. It's 4. I don't think we should pass it on automatically. I want to look at it personally. I mean, we do 3% every year, and we got to look at that again to see if we want to continue to do another 6, I think it was, 3% every year, so we keep it going 3%.
I thought you just said that ends this year, though.
Well, yeah, but we can reinitiate it.
Oh.
I mean, I guess that's the question.
I think maybe we should have the utility rate review, look it over next year and see where we're at. I mean, we have.
What do people think about that?
I think so, because we did spend quite a bit of time
That's
looking at
perfect.
the different permutations on how to get us to this point here. It might not be bad to look to see, yeah, it did work, let's keep it going, or no, we can tweak it to make it move better that
Want the
way.
Water Utilities Review Committee to make a meeting early on, look at it, so we
Right.
know.
Utility rate review.
Utility rate review, I mean,
So would you do 3% still July 1 of 18?
maybe. I mean, we're doing it
Well,
now.
right now, we're doing it January 1st.
Right, and then we're done.
We did it every January, right? Do we do it again, or do? 'Cause
But the
we-
next increase is coming in July, so I'm
Right,
saying.
So we have 6 months.
You would think that committee could make a recommendation to that.
Okay, I'm fine if you want.
Are we okay with that? You okay with that?
Utility rate review then.
Okay. All right, well, let's look at that, and we'll put it to the utility rate review, so, Kathy, you have to send out an email to the utility rate review at some point here between now and in January, maybe just asking them, we want to call the meeting together, maybe sometime in January, February, so that they can look at this issue of the increasing rates, because there'll probably be another increase in, coming up, because they're never gonna stop.
No, they said, and it's in the email and the report on the meeting, they said that we should anticipate roughly 3% increases for essentially the foreseeable future, but yeah, I think ever is probably more accurate. When we go to utility rate review, because I know the council committee chair for that usually attends, I usually attend. Are you asking them to consider the automatic pass-through, or are you?
Whatever,
asking-
all of it.
You-
See what they want to do.
All right. I just want to clarify what they're being asked to do.
But I guess whatever they're gonna do is they're gonna want a notification period for people, no matter what, I would imagine, so that they're notified that their rates are gonna go up. Now, if it's gonna go up 3% every year for the foreseeable future, everybody should expect that and can plan for that. But I think the goal is to give enough notification so people understand that their water rates are gonna go up in the foreseeable future every year. Because some people are on fixed income and they have to plan for that.
The other thing is that Avon is required, I just want to remind you, Avon is required under the contract we have with them to give us 6 months' notice. That's why they told us in November about this increase July 1st. So anytime we had an increase from Avon, we would be able to give our customers at least 5 months' notice, because we would get the notice at 6.
And we've been doing that, I think, pretty well. We've been,
Let me clarify, I'm not against just passing on, but I think we need to review it before we, and it seems like this is an opportune time.
well, the question is, these are different rates, like this is a pass on of 2.87%.
Right, we're in the, we've had, what, 7%, 8%, 9%?
Yes.
in
So the
past,
question is, if you
so-
just pass it on, all of a sudden it's a 10%, I mean, you might want to,
Yeah, right.
We wanna look at that.
I think
You
about
you might want to look at it, but as a practical matter, I don't know how much choice you have. I mean,
Right.
we have to pay Avon what they charge us.
Well, the question is,
Sorry.
that instead of doing that, we have the ability to raise it equally, where it might be higher in sometimes, and they may have a lower increase, but we could stabilize it, rather than having a 2% and all of a sudden 10%.
Right.
If we do a
Make
3 or
it
4%.
5% every year.
Right, that's what we tried to do before, to make it more equitable and equal as far as possible. Okay, well, let's call that so we can review that.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, good.
Okay, so in your packets, if you look, there's a Exhibit D, which is the very last page, it's page number 20.
Mhm.
And it states contract total 36 months, $18,000, which is $500 a month times 36 months. So what they did is they gave us a new exhibit that wasn't in the original contract. They forgot to go back and change the contract. So if it's okay with you all we need is a 3-year contract, $500 a month, and they'll get the new contract for you to sign, and we'll make sure it's there.
Yeah, move to approve as amended for a 3-year term as opposed to 5 with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next one we have then is 17-227, agreement with Health Department, sample test stormwater runoff. All right, who's that?
Yeah.
Pat, is that you?
Yes. This is just a renewal of an agreement. We're required as part of our EPA stormwater permit to have an agreement with the county health department for them to provide sampling and testing of stormwater when we need it. We originally started in 2009, had a 3-year agreement, and then 2012 was a 5-year agreement. It expires this month, so we need to re-up it. We don't use it very often. In fact, I think the last time we actually used them for testing was 2015. There is a financial part of the agreement where we pay them for these services. We obviously don't pay them, we only pay them for when we use them.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, Pat, when you say when we need it, can you go into more detail on that?
When we get, last time we did it, we had a report of an illicit discharge. I believe it was some sort of petroleum, that there was a leak reported, so we had them go in, sample and test to determine what it was. So we
So
could
that-
clean it up.
Okay, questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 17-228, bids for East Smith Road reconstruction. Patrick?
This is a project, it's a grant project, it's our issue 1 project for next year. This will be the reconstruction of East Smith between Court Street and Jefferson. Includes new pavement, water line, storm sewer, everything we typically do.
Oh, no, it says East Road. Isn't it says between North Court, but isn't that South Court? Or where am I?
Yeah, you're right.
East Smith, okay.
Should be South Court and South Jefferson.
So this is where the gas station is. That's gonna be
Correct. Yeah.
all redone. Now, we talked about widening that too, is that right?
We are widening, at the intersection with Broadway, we are making the turning radiuses a little bigger, but we're kind of limited.
How about widening in between Broadway and South Court? Is that gonna be widened? Because there's always a
No,
backup
it
there.
won't be wide.
There's really no room.
We are putting in the bike path, that's part of that other grant, 8-foot wide.
On the road, so it's gonna be narrow?
No, no,
Oh,
no.
okay, it's gonna be wider.
To the other side.
Slow down, buddy, slow down.
Get nervous there for a second, because that's back, you can never, that stops traffic at Broadway, because nobody can turn left, because the cars are backed up all the way from South Court, all the way to Broadway, so everything's just stopped. So,
Yeah,
that's not good.
Well, we've done traffic studies on that whole area, and when we put the lights in, before we put the upgraded the light system, we looked at options to try to improve that. It's a tough spot, you know, especially during rush hour.
yeah. Afternoon rush is a tremendous tax on that stretch of road.
We talked about earlier about, was there a possibility of getting a little bit of extra room on Smith Road when you turn where you turn left onto South Court?
Right.
Because the turn lane on Smith Road to make a left turn is so short that it backs up into the traffic that's going straight.
Mhm.
Do you remember we talked about that? Could we take, is there a few feet we can take off? Is there any feet we can take off of the right-of-way on north or
North side.
south between South Court Street and Broadway to make that?
We would have to purchase some right away. We're,
Castle One.
the footprint we have for this project is maxed out. If we wanted to go any more, we'd have to purchase right away from either one side or the other.
Well, I guess the question is there, you can always have a left turn signal on Broadway going north and just delay things longer for people moving through the intersection, let it clear out. I mean, because that's what technically you're doing now by not having a turn signal, because people just sit there. And it's just block it for a whole cycle, and maybe 2 cycles, people
Most of the
then.
volume of traffic, not to interrupt you, is actually, I think, heading northbound on Broadway.
That's what I mean, you-
Southbound in front of Garfield, you might have some, but the main.
Yeah, but you
artery
can never
going-
turn left, that's
Right.
the big problem.
I'm just chiming in.
But again, it's only a couple times a day. I mean, it's
Well, I mean,
significant if you're sitting there, but it's early morning and then afternoon, rush time.
Are we gonna put the left turn lights in there to?
You know?
It's not in the plan.
That's not part of this project, and we can certainly look at that. This is just pavement replacement.
Which is needed.
No, it's
Well, yeah.
long overdue.
But I guess the question is, we still want the traffic to flow better.
The pavement replacement's more than needed, but if you look at the traffic both coming north on Broadway to try to turn, and you look at the traffic going west on Smith Road, once you get to Broadway, and then you're going from Broadway to Court Street, and then if you look at the traffic going down south on Court Street, which backs up so that you actually can't make a left turn those times of days, because there's no place to make that left turn. It seems like we ought to we ought to take a look at whatever you could do to try to, like Mark said, maybe have the lights timed differently in order to have traffic at certain times moving a different direction, moving one slower and one faster so that you can move more traffic through, because it does become a bottleneck that is multiple intersections and multiple turn lanes all at the same time.
Well, the only way to do that is what Cleveland does sometimes, is traffic is only allowed to go one way on that street certain times of the day, and the other people are rerouted a different way, and you flow that traffic, whatever is the heaviest, to get it moving and get it out. And I don't know if that works or not. I mean,
Like a reversible lane.
it does.
yes.
It does work.
So you have reversible, like maybe on East Smith between Court and Broadway, you only can go west at certain times and east other, because traffic's going either to 71 or coming back from 71 or 57. It's going certain ways, and you just have to train yourself. If you want to go north or south, you have to turn either earlier or go a different way. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different options.
So I don't know how we look at those options.
But I mean, we did traffic count, and looked at that
Yeah,
pretty
as far as the-
extensively.
the
And they
timing of
failed, I
lights,
think.
mean,
Didn't they
we can
fail?
always
Those
look at
intersections
that
failed?
again, but
Yeah.
Remember, since we put the system in 2008, twice we've gone back, once on our dime and once ODOT did it, to look at everything and reprogram it and come up with better options.
But that was to keep traffic going both ways all the time. And I think those intersections failed.
District,
Yeah.
that whole downtown area.
Because it's just gonna get more and more traffic, I would imagine, as time goes on.
Well, there's other things we can look at to alleviate that.
Streets and sidewalks, how about it?
Yeah, and that's fine, but I think right now
We're okay with this, but I'm just talking, there's bigger problems here.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, we have one item on the projects list to talk about the 71 interchange.
That may
Which administration's been in talks in the past, and maybe that's something we need to put at the forefront, I think.
Well, the problem is the money to do this secondary study that's required now. We got funds to do the first study from the state, but the second study, and then there's a third and a fourth and a fifth. But until you get those things all checked off, then that 10 or 12 years is pushed further and further. And when you get to the time of constructing it, then you're still, in today's dollars, you're at $20 to $22 million. For
And wasn't the
interchange.
second study, I mean, if I remember correctly, it was 228,000, that was it?
It's between 400,000 and 600,000
Oh, okay.
for the second study.
For the study, and that would be between us and Montville and,
It'd be nice if we could get Montville Township and the Transportation Improvement District and the city to kick in funds to help fund that study.
And then what, would NOACA take the help on that as well?
no, the first.
Typically, NOACA, I don't think they fund transportation studies. I don't know, maybe Pat, he goes to some of those meetings, maybe he would know about grant
Yeah, I don't
funding.
think they're gonna fund anything for interchange. It's not their focus.
Yeah.
But their traffic.
Pay for it.
Okay.
Well, the point
That's a
is,
whole nother
the
discussion.
point in this is that if we're gonna fix the road, you know people are gonna say, oh, they're fixing it, that's great. And then when it's done fixed, they're gonna say, they didn't fix anything.
They didn't improve it.
They didn't improve it,
Well,
why'd they
you know
waste the money?
difference of concrete, I'll tell you that.
Well, they're gonna notice that, but they're
Yeah,
gonna think
Be like, why
that,
wouldn't you do something?
why wouldn't you?
Why you have this all torn up?
Right.
Well, that's my point.
Sounds
though.
like an
While
easy
we're-
fix, but it's not.
Well, this is not particularly, this discussion, but it is kind of part of this discussion. If we're going to do the road, why would we not look at widening that section of Smith Road and see what that would alleviate? If you had a turn lane that wasn't only 3 cars, you know, if you had a actual left.
Well, there's 2 turn lanes, right?
Right.
So it takes away-
I mean, we have property there is property to the north, you know, that.
I mean, I would think that would be the only.
But
Either that or just make
Isn't there
it
a-
one
Just
way.
depend how- but you-
At certain times of day.
Isn't there a left turn lane going east on Smith at Broadway? Also?
Yes?
So,
Yeah.
You
I mean, I don't know how you can
can't.
lengthen.
That's the thing, there is that one lane, but then there is the turn lane. Once you get down to Court Street on Smith going west,
Right.
there is the straight lane, the turn lane, and the lane going the other way.
Right, but it's
Right.
the same way going east.
It is.
So,
Right.
I mean, I agree with you 100%, except,
You're right, you can only do it one way,
I was thinking width-wise and just the street in general, if we could take some, he brought up
north.
north, well, on the north side
Yeah.
of Smith.
Well, I guess we can look at this
Yeah,
at
for
the
a
same
while.
time, but I
Yeah,
think the
but-
bigger question is, whatever's the busiest traffic that causes the most traffic jams, you have to figure a way to either let it go through, or have the lights longer, or do something to let the traffic get out of the intersections and clear, because once you jam one up, then the next one up there jams, and the next one after that jams up, so you're just causing a problem, like you said, citywide.
well, there's 2 options that the city of Cleveland, I know, uses. One is, like you mentioned, or Bill mentioned, one-way traffic certain times of day. The other option, you have human beings out there from the police department getting traffic flowing during certain times of day, early morning and afternoon.
The problem with the police thing, I think, that was if you put one at that intersection at Smith and Broadway, then you've got to have one north
Exactly.
for the next
Well,
intersection. You know,
yeah,
you've
downtown,
got to, you've
yeah.
got to do the, otherwise they just, you know, pile up on another
Right.
one.
Right.
Well, I guess we don't need to improve it, so that's not an issue. The widening may be problematic, could happen, but there's other solutions that we have to look at too, because I think if we fix it and don't solve, at least attempt or solve the traffic problem, people are gonna wonder what we did.
Well,
I think,
It's a big-
it's such a bad, excuse me, Mark,
oh, go ahead.
it's such a bad road. I think people will very much appreciate the fact that it'll be a
Oh,
wonderful
during
road.
non-traffic times,
And then they might wonder, okay, but it's still plugged up, I don't, you know.
Non-traffic times, they'll love it, but during traffic times, they'll be like, what did you guys do? So,
Thanks, John.
You win, you don't win for losing, or whatever that's called.
Well, we
Well-
may, I'm sorry.
We're hoping to schedule sometime in January a streets meeting, getting together with Patrick and the rest of the people on the committee. I think it's Bill and I don't know who else right now, but, yeah, that's something we can add to the agenda to discuss.
So it looks like our city share would be 919,000
Correct.
from the 108 fund, and then the grant's 450. So,
Correct.
but I think we all agree it needs to be done.
Right.
Okay?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 17-229, bids for Champion Creek multi-purpose path streetscape.
This is another grant project, this one federal grant. This is for the installation, listed there. A little less than a mile of bike lanes on State Route 3 on each side. About a half a mile of sign shared roadway along South Court from Smith to Lafayette, along Lafayette. Court to Broadway from the trailhead north to Smith, or north Lafayette to Grant, and then Grant Street. There's some streetscape elements and some stormwater detention elements. And then there'll be some 8-foot wide concrete shared use path along South Broadway. As I just mentioned, the one on, there'll also be one on Smith, but that'll be installed at the other project.
And we talked about this, about the bump, or whatever you call it, the raised issue regarding the plowing and cars, and so, thoughts? Anybody okay with this?
I think we have time to look at that. I think this is, we talked, I don't know, this is a wonderful extension of, if you're a biker, or to make this connection on the street, I mean, this is exciting. I mean,
Patrick, am I reading this right? This is going to go along Grant, or go along South Broadway to Grant Street?
Correct. Now, understand, that's not a new path. That's just signage and some pavement marking. It's not a...
Okay, so they're going to share one of the narrowest streets in the city.
Correct.
Okay, but it is getting it off of Court Street, which is one of my things. Okay, and how would this impact anything we do with Broadway down the road? You know, repaving it, rebricking it, whatever we redo on that.
Oh, okay.
Will this impact that at all?
Not particularly. I think it'll be improved by it, because we'll be widening a little bit of Broadway. But it's mostly just signage. It's not that great of an impact.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 17-230, city contribution to Medina County Office of Older Adults. Mark, or the mayor, one, two?
I'll start, if the mayor wants to chime in. We have Laura Toth here, who's Director of Medina County Office of Older Adults. This office has done a lot for our seniors in the community, and we feel that they have, and she'll explain a little bit about the office and what they do for our residents. What, my side of it and the mayor's side of it is that they've lost funds just like the rest of us, and we thought it would be a great idea to help this office to continue to help seniors, feed seniors, give them transportation by using aggregation funds that we've recently voted to receive from our extension of the First Energy Solutions contract. We have on here 2018, 19, 20, and 21 of contributing $20,000 annually each year to the office. In 18, let me back up. 19, 20, and 21, we have the contract in place with First Energy Solutions. Now, there's a range of, and Nino can chime in if he wants, a minimum of $20,000 to a maximum of $25,000 grant we can receive. So the number of 20,000 will be paid for through that grant in 19, 20, and 21. Now for 2018, we still have $7,600 left in our electric aggregation. So what I would like, or we would like to do, is use the rest of that amount towards 18, and then pull 12,400 from general fund to help pay for 18, with hopefully anticipation of being reimbursed in the later years of 19, 20, and 21. If we max out at the full amount of 25,000, there will be an additional 15,000 within that timeline to make up for the 12,000 we put up front next year. Now, if for some reason we don't, we are still contributing next year 12,000 some change towards a great office that does a wonderful impact to our community and its senior citizens. Dennis, I don't know if you want to say anything right now, or let Laura just talk about this.
Well, just briefly, if you look at the demographics of the county, much like we see with other demographics, we look at senior population, because we're the county seat. We have a much higher percentage than the other cities and the rest of the county. So we have a larger proportion that their office is trying to offset the costs of. And as Mark and I discussed it, and Laura and I have talked about it, we just feel that we should and need to try to help with the needs in our community so that our seniors can continue to live and exist here.
Laura?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak for a few minutes. Hopefully not a few minutes. I'll try to pare it down. But I think a lot of people think of Medina County Office for Older Adults as the senior center at the corner of Northland and North Huntington Street. That is where we are located. And it's the smallest thing we do is run that senior center. We're really, the bulk of our funds, our total agency budget is about $700,000 currently, or a little more. And the bulk of that money goes to keep people aging in place through providing meals for them, some within the senior center, some within their homes if they qualify, and providing transportation. So I know the city's already funding the transportation loop on the back end, getting that going for the city. We're funding so seniors can ride that for free. And then we also fund so seniors, if they can't take the loop and they have a doctor's appointment, they can go and we would pay for that ride from curb to curb. We signed a contract with Transit to do that. It's $1.50 per mile historically. It's going up 70 cents per mile next year. So that increases our transit budget by $40,000 just for that program. And that's countywide, not by, I didn't break that down to the city. But just the number of trips that, for 1 month, I broke down September of 17. The number of curb-to-curb transit that's outside the loop, there was 222 within the city limits of Medina. So people who live here and are taking the transit to doctor's appointments, counseling appointments, physical therapy, that sort of thing. If you look at home delivered meals, I think that's the number one thing we do. It's really essential. 31 people in the city of Medina received those in September. 553 meals were delivered. And that really, I think, it keeps the economic footprint within the city limits. If you have somebody, even if they're getting home delivered meals, they're still getting their groceries, they're still doing banking, they're still shopping, doing other things, even though they're homebound. That money is getting saved and spent within your city, not within a facility where their funds are being depleted and then going on to programs such as Medicaid. Then we also serve hot meals 3 days a week, 5 days a week at the center, and 3 days a week those are partially locally funded. So that money will be well spent. We served 67 meals to Medina City residents in the month of September. These are all hand counted, so I don't have it every month, but I plan to do this quarterly, and would be more than happy to keep the mayor and the council apprised of where the money is being spent and how it's being utilized by the constituents of your municipality.
One other thing is, Paul brought up a question reference, it's a question for Greg Huber, reference to the aggregation funds. Is there any limitation on where those funds can be spent? Because I don't think we had really any limitation at the prior contracts, but that was just a question that was brought up that, anybody know that off the top of their head, that there would be a limitation for the aggregation funds? I think that's more of a grant, and the city has open domain on what we can spend that on.
It's a legal question, but I don't hear Greg chiming up. But my understanding with it was just money given that we got for signing that, and because we didn't put any strings on it before, if there were, we'd have put it in a separate fund. We just put it in general fund.
That was my understanding, Mark,
Okay.
that the money simply went into the general fund. I haven't looked at that issue specifically, but
Okay.
off the top of my head, that's my understanding.
And I don't know if you've all visited the center. It's a great facility. We are blessed to have it in our community. There's a large population of our city residents that go there every week. And to me, this aggregation funds is a great opportunity where we're not pulling from other areas. This is money that essentially will just go from us to them to help city residents, seniors in particular. And to me, I think that makes sense. So.
Thoughts?
Laura, can I ask you a couple, did you say 67 Medina residents for the month of September? I just want to make sure I heard that right.
67 meals.
That's people that come into the senior center then?
Correct.
And then you,
553 meals where they're staying in their home.
okay, and are you preparing all of that right there at the senior center?
Yes, we get grant-funded meals, so we get meals catered in that we prepare, seal, and package, and then send out, and 2 days a week, we cook at our facility.
And the 550 is again just City of Medina?
Correct.
Okay.
I have, do you want the statistics?
No, it's okay, I just want to make sure that I was understanding
Yeah.
that. So 67 in the month of September came into the center, and then 550.
Some of those could have been duplicated, but 67 meals were served.
Okay.
City of Medina residents.
But the 553 is just the month.
Correct, just one.
Right,
month.
that's just 1 month.
So that's
right.
6,636 meals if you took that over 12 months. Now, that's not residents, that's again,
Right,
that's
right.
meals.
Got it, yeah.
Within the city limits.
I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
I appreciate, Mark, you brought that here? You and the mayor? Yeah, I think it's a terrific idea. It speaks to a kind of a higher need, that we all are probably concerned and interested in.
Well, I kind of agree, but the only thing I disagree with is, I just read the paper that Garfield Middle School has 60% poverty rate with kids. So maybe we should donate some to the Feeding the Children of Medina. I think that Sandy Calvert's with that. And then we have the opioid issue where they need money. Maybe we should give some money to them too. I mean, there's all these nonprofits that need money. You got Metro Housing that needs money for people to live because they don't have anywhere to live because they don't have any money. So how do we pick one without giving money to the others?
I think you start one place and do what you can do. We also give money to Main Street Medina, I think, don't we?
Yes.
Is that a nonprofit?
Yes.
But we didn't include that one.
Well, Main Street Medina and SPCA.
Right, so, and I think this is.
But this is 20,000. All these other ones, they get little.
PCA provides a service.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
As to this, we don't really run a senior center like some
We
cities
used
do.
to have an office of, the city had an office of older adults that we used to run out of a separate building. And we had an administrator who was the administrator of the office of older adults. And we did provide services there for seniors to go there during the day. We provided meals. I think it's, I think this is the same thing. You've lost funding?
Yes. And we're set to lose another 2.5% of federal funding in 2018.
What else have we used aggregation funds for?
We used it for a lot of things. We had $323,000.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Thanks.
We used it for economic development
We
purposes,
did.
and we got more money in for the city, which
What did
I
we
think
specifically spend some of it on?
$40,000 on lights.
Okay.
That's right.
And did we all vote for that? We were all good with that?
Mark Woodley wasn't.
Oh, you voted for it?
Well, no, not all the time.
I think
You didn't vote for
I
all
think
the
it
time.
speaks to a need.
I understand the need, but there's so many other people that need money. So how do we pick one? I just have a problem.
I
because
think that
I
Feeding
don't know how to do
Medina
that.
County works really, really well, and I think that the backpacks that they take and the feeding, which is extraordinary at Garfield School, I think they do a terrific job there. They've not asked us, I don't think they've approached us for that, because I think that they've been pretty capable of
Well,
putting
the mayor
it
gets
together.
calls, you got a call just the other day from Skip
From
asking,
MMHA.
asking
right.
for money.
Now, Feeding Medina County, the city has, we've had fundraisers,
Right.
Gene Day or whatever, So we do try to help out, and I personally try to help out, but there are lots of needs. This is, I think, a little closer to each of our hearts, because these are the people that have helped the city get to the place it is today. And if they need some assistance, that's why I signed on with Mark. If they need some assistance, I think it's an obligation of us to.
And our senior population is growing.
Yes.
So we're gonna have more demand. She's gonna have more demand as years go on. And yes, this is only a 4-year window, but I think this is something that will help the cause to help that growing population.
I guess, too, can we go back to it for a minute? Like, I know Strongsville, they're running a senior center out of the rec center. That comes out of their budget. So I guess I'm looking at, this is 20,000 that we can pair up with the Office of Older Adults for the county, kind of run a senior center for us at a much reduced rate and still provide a service. Like Bill said, there used to be a separate one just for the city.
And an administrator that was part of.
Look, I don't mind that, but you guys okay with this, if other people come in, like Metro Housing, and they ask for money, are we okay giving them money too?
Well, we always discuss and balance, and, anybody can come in and ask and
Because they're gonna come in.
Okay.
Once we do this,
And look, I
They're
can
coming in.
equate it to the SPCA, because we're getting a service that
Right.
we don't have to hire a dog catcher for, or.
wait, we gave
animal-
7,500. Is that, what's the last amount we gave?
8,500 was what we gave them last year.
And that was really Paul, because Paul
And they wanted-
took some
they wanted
time and really
18,000,
figured out what we really
But-
needed to pay for that service, so we weren't paying too much, but this is an important service. I mean, eating is an important,
Well, I do that every day.
Pardon?
I do that every day.
Well,
And I agree with you, eating is a very important thing, but looking at, trust me, I
Glad I came just to get on that.
But looking at the other things that are out there, okay, you've got Feeding Medina County, you've got the St. Vincent de Paul Society, you've got, name it, there's multiple ways. Salvation Army, what is it, once or twice a week, people can go for a meal. And the like, those are all available. I know that St. Francis participates in the Meals on Wheels thing once a month, or once a year, I should say, twice a year, something like that, where they go out and they do the delivery. Are these the meals that they deliver, or is this something different than the Meals on Wheels?
No, this is, it's a Meals on Wheels program, and it's not one that St. Francis participates in. It's an entitlement under the Older Americans Act, is how it began back in the late 60s.
Okay, to that point, do we have any cross-checks? And I'm not saying people are double dipping or triple dipping, don't get me wrong, but let's face it, we're all human. Is there a cross-check between what St. Francis does and what you do to make sure that, we're not missing anybody and we're not doubling up on somebody?
Well, they can't receive another meal program and get our program, other than the senior staples provided by.
Okay, all right, so there is a cross-check then.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
well, and, Faith in Action, Mark, you did Dancing with the Stars. Faith in Action raises that money to do some of what you're doing, to drive people to their doctor's appointment, wherever. But I think what you're saying really about there is this other place and this other place, really, sheds a light on the enormity of the need, and by addressing not all of it, but trying to address part of it as it comes, I think makes sense and is something that we have the ability to do. It's kind of like the starfish story. The kid walking down the beach, and there's starfish all washed up on the shore, and he's tossing them back in, and the old man comes by and he says, "What are you doing?" He goes, "They washed up on the beach, I'm throwing these back in." And the guy goes, "You can't save them all." And he goes, "No, but I can save this one." I think you save them as you can, help them as you can. I think it's a good, I'm glad you brought it, Mark. It's a good.
Well, and I support this 100%. But I also agree with Mr. Coyne, there are a lot of need from our entire population, and not only in the city, but the entire county. Maybe it's time that, and again, we do support different organizations, and I'm not reading it as John is against this at all. I'm reading it more that, what do we do about the other needs? And unfortunately, since we've all been on council, the needs have increased tenfold in all the areas.
And they're all getting cut funding, all the nonprofits are getting cut.
And 100%. Maybe, and I don't know if there's a way that we can do this, if we can go to our voting population and say, nobody wants to hear the word of income tax increase, but a tax of some kind that the city as a whole can start addressing more of these problems. Because I think all of us on council, when we decided to run for council, we not only wanted to provide safety services, and we wanted to help the less fortunate. And by doing that, we've installed sidewalks and redone streets and provided leaf programs. We're also providing, helping people that aren't less fortunate, but we are helping the people that are less fortunate. So maybe there's some, this could start a conversation, and again, I support what you're asking for this time. Start a conversation on how we can, as a city, as a municipality, start raising funds to support more than just this request, more than just the transit request, more than just the SPCA request. Because I do think that we have an obligation to help the people that's less fortunate, and then older adults do fall in that category. Maybe not financially sometimes, but just the need because they don't have the ability anymore to provide that for themselves. So I support you, but I think that in the future we do need to start talking about, as a municipality, raising funds so we can address more of what you're saying.
There is an issue out there, and I think the nonprofits, you gotta remember, they're set up, and the government tried to help, I guess. They give them 501c3 status so you get tax deduction. So people donate their own money to get the tax deduction.
Right.
But, that doesn't necessarily always happen.
But in some of the larger organizations, though, as you mentioned, as this young lady mentioned, the funding's being cut, when they're supported by either the state or the federal
Funding for the
government.
city's being
I
cut.
was sure to say that, every place you go.
We get cut of
Anyhow,
money.
I don't know.
Okay,
Well, I do have one
Any other
question for
questions?
Mr. Huber, Greg. Are there any limitations to the city donating like this to an organization like them from, to your knowledge? Regardless of whether it's coming from the aggregation fund, the general fund, or if we do as Mr. Simpson suggested, set up a special fee or something.
Or maybe
to
allocate some of
fund
the
it.
income tax to this or something? I mean,
Or some
we
of
could
our
probably do
fees,
that.
maybe not income tax, maybe some of the other fees that we could.
We give money to Main Street Battalion.
Well, the only-
Well, we could cut off,
I'm
maybe,
just saying-
we
I'm not saying- I'm
don't
just
have to
saying
fund
it's-
Main Street
Okay, well,
Battalion
I
anymore, we
asked-
can cut that off.
Excuse me, I asked
It
Mr.
is
Huber a
the
question. I'd like to hear his answer, please.
The only limitation I'm aware of would be a suit from a taxpayer who is upset with how you're spending your money, which frankly could happen anytime you decide to spend money.
Okay.
And then we would go to the common pleas court, and there would be an analysis of money spent here as compared to money spent there. That is the point that John Coyne is making, and a judge would have to say whether we're doing it improperly. And off the top of my head, I can't say that we're doing it improperly. It seems like you have the discretion as to what you want to do. So, kind of gray area when you're trying to decide how to spend your money.
Laura, what's the average cost per meal?
$4.49.
I guess to further answer your question, Paul, it would seem to me that there aren't too many people out there who are taxpayers, who would challenge the idea of trying to help with this cause, because it's basically beneficial to a segment of people that everybody cares about. And the fact of the matter is, the council is responding to the loss of funding, which is over the knuckleheads we have as politicians in our state and federal government.
Thank you.
Greg, there you go sugarcoating things again.
So there's the $20,000, it's just those meals, those 500 meals.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it like we do with the SPCA, where you're paying for a service, and Paul went through the process of justifying how much we should give to the SPCA, if you look at that, I mean, we're getting a service through this office at a pretty good rate.
Well, no, I don't disagree. I just, when Metro comes and they're gonna want 50, 60,000, I'm hoping we're gonna give it to them. Because they need it. They provide a service for people to live. And then when Robbie's House comes for the opioids and wants 30,000, I hope we give it to them. Because they need to get the drug addicts to help solve that problem. So I'm just saying, as long as we have a couple of 100,000 extra sitting around and we can give to all these nonprofits, I'm fine with it, but I don't think we do. Because I don't think we can pick and choose like that, because I think I feel we should give it to the children who can't eat and go to school hungry, because the school only can provide so much. We should provide more so they at least have a healthy meal so that they can learn. I mean, there's so many needs that we're leaving out that I think we should address, and I don't think addressing one is the solution. And by saying, well, let's just do one at a time, well, no, because there's so many other needs that are just as important. They're just as important as that need the money. And we have 20,000, why don't we give 1,000 each? That way at least we know we cover most of the needs.
Which would be 1,000 that wouldn't do much for anybody, probably, right?
I don't know. They got all cut funding too, I'm sure, and they're looking to say, well, geez, this person's gonna be homeless because we don't have enough money to give them subsidy housing to live. So do we say, oh, that's just too bad to be homeless? I don't know, I'm not like, I can't do that. So that's why I don't think I'm voting for it, because I think we should spread it out more, because we shouldn't just pick one.
Have you ever brought it up to spread it out more?
This is the first time it came up.
Anything, I mean?
This is the first.
I mean, all these other
we-
needs
we've
you're talking
never-
about?
We've never given money to nonprofits as a city, because we're a city. We got a lot of our own
Well, yes,
problems.
we have, Main Street Medina.
What's the SPCA, what's Main Street Medina?
Oh, yeah, we give them, just because otherwise we
They're
have to
nonprofit.
hire a dog warden. I mean, an animal
well, then
warden.
Why don't we open an office of
We don't
older
have-
adults?
Well, maybe we should.
Well, we won't be able to do it for 20,000 and get the same bang that we're getting through the counties.
And the money we donate to Main Street Medina is for economic development, to bring in more funds so we can provide the services that we already provide and not have to cut services.
Or raise taxes.
Or raise taxes. And like I said, I agree with, I mean, I don't think that you're saying we don't want to help this lady and her organization.
No, I think we want to help her, but there's so many more people we want to help.
That's why. I
That's
think
my problem.
Maybe as a group and an administration, we can sit down and, you know, think of some way to raise funds as a city, so when people like this young lady comes in and Mark and the mayor make this request, we can say, yeah, that, you know, this is why we set aside these funds or raise these funds, is to help people like you, to help Metro Housing, to help Robbie's House, to help, you know, I agree
Well,
with you.
they'll be in next year, I'm sure.
Well, out of fairness, with due respect to the press that's here, the request from MMHA was not for 50 or 60,000. It was for 10 from each city, and they were wanting the county to increase theirs by 20 or 30. And I have not presented it to council because I shared with Skip that the first question is going to be, what are the other two cities in the counties doing? We don't want to be the only one in. And of course, his response is, there was no answer yet from the county, and the other two cities feel that because Medina gets the largest share of it because of our demographics, that Medina should, but they shouldn't. So, you know, that's kind of the quandary we're in. But out of fairness to Skip and his organization, the request was 10,000.
Okay. No, that's fine, that's fine. 10,000, but again, Robbie's House, they're gonna have a request, I'm sure, because they're in the city. They're gonna want some money to keep going after the grant wears out, or the county's not gonna continue to do that. They're gonna look at, well, where do these issues come from? And Lakota came in, they're a nonprofit that are doing something that we need as a city. Like you said, SPA's comes in, I think feeding the Medina County with the children, I'm sure they need money too. I would give them money too, because otherwise, how the children, what are we gonna have the children go hungry? I don't think we should do that. I mean, there's all these issues that need to be addressed.
And out of fairness to the county, they did put on a social service levy that was voted down. And that part of that levy would have been to assist with this, assist with the Adam Board with mental health issues, assist with alternative paths, which is dealing with the opiate addiction, and I serve on the Adam Board. So the voters did not feel that the need was great enough, at least, to pass a levy to increase their taxes to pay for that.
Laura, a question. Do you have any fundraisers going on, similar, like Feeding Medina County has something going on in March, where they have a fundraiser, and other organizations do that. Do you do anything like that?
We are not a 501c3, we're a political subdivision, so we don't have the 501c3 fundraisers. We do have a registered 501c3 name, so we're trying to start one because this funding need is not going away, it's not going anywhere, but we do not have any organized fundraisers at this time.
Any other questions?
I also think it's very similar to transit. We're trying to provide a service, and we put money there every year too, so I think this is the same type of service we're trying to help out here. Move to approve?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay, 17-231, fund advances. It is Keith.
231 and 232 are to roll over the outstanding advances. As I mentioned earlier, when we talked about it, we passed the appropriation for it. The auditors want to see the advances not be 5, 6, 7 years old. They want them rolled every year, so this is our rollover.
So this is just the rollover of the appropriation for the advance, that the grant hasn't been paid back yet, and is expected to be paid back at some point.
It is expected to be paid back at some point, but for example, like jet fuel is one of these. I mean, we talked about that the other day. That's
Right.
going to be paid back at some point, but it may be a while out. And another one in this is the water tower, which is, we've been rolling that one since '06. We did pay back part of it, but, you know, they're not necessarily next year.
And this came from the audit findings that they want us to do this once a year.
They want to show that council is still aware of and supportive of this advance.
Okay.
And these are the same funds that we spoke of earlier?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And then we have 17-232, which is
It's the same
final
thing, it's just-
rollover fund advances.
Move to approve?
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Last thing we have is, anything else before we recess into executive session? Anybody have anything to bring up? Because we're off for like a month, maybe not, 3 weeks. Nope.
So rather than contract negotiations, it's really more about wages and benefits for,
Terms of employment?
yes, sir.
Okay. I'll make a motion that at 7:01 that we go into executive session for the purposes of, to consider the compensation of public employees or officials.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Lamb.
Yes.
Hilbert. Shields.
Yes.
Holden.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss what Mr. Shields just mentioned. We'll be coming out of executive session, not taking any action on what we discussed in executive session, and then we'll reconvene finance and then adjourn from finance and go to council.
We need Keith
Oh,
and
and also-
Victoria are going to stay, and myself.
To include Keith or,
Everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, what do you want to meet, down here or upstairs?
Wherever you prefer.